Most people think staying broke happens because they don't earn enough. But that's almost never where the story begins. It begins on an ordinary Tuesday. At 6:15 in the morning, Sarah silences her alarm, grabs her phone, and checks her bank account before her feet even touch the floor. Her paycheck arrived 3 days ago, yet the balance is already lower than she expected. Nothing dramatic happened. No emergency, no expensive vacation, no reckless shopping spree. Just another week that somehow cost more than it should have. She tells herself the same thing she's been saying for years. I just need a bigger paycheck. It's a sentence millions of Americans repeat every month, and for a while, it sounds logical. After all, more income should solve the problem, right? But here's the contradiction that catches many people off guard. There are households earning over $200,000 a year that still live paycheck to paycheck. At the same time, there are families earning far less who quietly build savings, invest consistently, and sleep peacefully, knowing they're making progress. So if income alone isn't creating the difference, what is? The answer has almost nothing to do with one big financial decision. It has everything to do with one small decision repeated every single day. And once Sarah accidentally discovered that daily habit, her financial life began to change. Not overnight, but in a way that finally lasted. At first, nothing about Sarah looked unusual. She was 29 years old, worked a full-time office job, rented a small apartment, paid her bills on time most months, and genuinely believed she was being responsible with money. She wasn't buying designer handbags every month. She wasn't driving a luxury SUV. She wasn't taking expensive vacations every few months. Yet somehow, every payday felt like pressing a reset button. Money came in. Bills went out. Small purchases piled up. Then came the anxiety of waiting for the next paycheck. It became such a normal cycle that Sarah stopped questioning it. She assumed adulthood simply worked this way. But what she couldn't see was that her biggest financial problem wasn't showing up on her bank statement. It was happening inside her mind. Behavioral economists have spent decades studying why intelligent people make poor financial decisions. One of the most powerful findings is that humans naturally prioritize immediate rewards over future rewards. Psychologists often refer to this as present bias. In simple terms, your brain is wired to value today's comfort more than tomorrow's security. That's why ordering takeout feels easier than cooking. Buying the latest phone feels more exciting than investing. And spending $50 today somehow feels less painful than realizing you've spent over $18,000 after repeating similar choices for years. The numbers don't lie, but our brains often do. Sarah wasn't making one catastrophic decision. She was making dozens of tiny decisions every day that quietly pushed her future further away. Coffee here, food delivery there, a subscription she forgot existed, a flash sale that convinced her she was saving money. None of these purchases looked dangerous by themselves. That's exactly why they were so dangerous. Most people imagine financial failure as one massive mistake. The reality is usually much quieter. It's the invisible habits that slowly shape your financial identity. And this is where most advice completely misses the point. People are constantly told to stop buying coffee, stop eating out, or stop enjoying life. But deprivation rarely lasts. When your financial plan feels like punishment, your brain eventually rebels against it. Sarah experienced this firsthand. Every budget she created looked perfect on paper. Every budget failed within weeks. Not because she lacked discipline, because she was fighting her own psychology instead of designing around it. That realization changed everything. Instead of asking, how can I stop spending? She started asking a completely different question. What is one action I can repeat every single day that naturally makes better financial decisions easier? That question sounds almost too simple. But over the next year, it became the foundation of everything that followed. And surprisingly, the first step had nothing to do with investing, side hustles, or earning more money. It started with something that took less than 5 minutes each day. Most people ignore it because it feels too small to matter. Yet it's the same habit that quietly separates people who constantly struggle with money from those who steadily build wealth, regardless of income. And once Sarah committed to doing it every single day, something unexpected began to happen, not just to her bank account, but to the way she saw every dollar that entered her life. That's where the real transformation begins. Sarah expected the habit to change her money. She didn't expect it to change her behavior. Every evening, before doing anything else, she opened her banking app and spent 5 minutes reviewing every dollar she had spent that day. She didn't judge herself. She didn't promise to never spend again. She didn't create complicated spreadsheets. She simply looked. At first, it felt pointless. After all, she already knew what she had bought. Or at least she thought she did. But after a week, something surprising happened. Patterns began to appear. She realized she wasn't spending because she needed things. She was spending because she was bored, because she was stressed after work, because she wanted a small reward for getting through the day. The money wasn't solving those problems. It was simply masking them. And that's an important distinction. Most people think they're managing money. In reality, they're managing emotions with money. Once Sarah understood that, every purchase started telling a story. The expensive coffee wasn't really about coffee. It was about convenience. The online shopping wasn't really about clothes. It was about chasing the temporary excitement of buying something new. The late-night food deliveries weren't really about hunger. They were about exhaustion. This is why so many budgets fail. A budget can tell you what not to buy, but it can't explain why you wanted to buy it in the first place. Without solving the why, the spending always returns. Behavioral researchers have found that simply tracking your behavior increases awareness, and awareness alone often changes future decisions. It's a principle that's been observed across many areas of life, from nutrition to exercise to personal finance. In other words, what you measure begins to improve. Sarah wasn't forcing herself to become a different person. She was becoming aware of the person she already was. And awareness is where financial freedom begins. By the second week, something even stranger happened. She found herself asking one simple question before almost every purchase. Will my future self thank me for this? Sometimes the answer was yes. Paying her electricity bill? Absolutely. Buying groceries to cook healthy meals? Of course. Replacing a pair of worn-out work shoes? No hesitation. But buying another item because it was 50% off? Suddenly the answer wasn't so obvious. That single question created a pause. And that pause changed everything. Because wealth isn't built in the moments when money enters your account. It's built in the moments just before money leaves it. That's the moment most people ignore. Sarah began calling it her decision gap. Just 5 or 10 seconds between wanting something and paying for it. It doesn't sound powerful, but over hundreds of decisions, it becomes life-changing. Within a month, she noticed something remarkable. She didn't feel deprived. She wasn't constantly saying no to herself. Instead, she was saying yes only to the things that truly mattered. Her spending naturally dropped without feeling forced. For the first time in years, money remained in her account at the end of the month. Not because she earned more, because she leaked less. Think of your finances like filling a bucket with water. Most people focus on pouring in more water by working harder, asking for a raise, or starting another side hustle. Those are great goals. But if the bucket has dozens of tiny holes, pouring in more water won't solve the problem. The first job is sealing the leaks. Only then does the bucket begin to fill. Sarah finally understood that she'd spent years trying to earn her way out of habits she had never corrected. And that's why every raise disappeared almost as quickly as it arrived. Lifestyle inflation quietly took over. Each increase in income became permission to increase spending. A nicer apartment, a newer phone, more subscriptions, more convenience, more things that felt normal after just a few weeks. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. Humans quickly become accustomed to improvements, causing today's luxury to become tomorrow's expectation. That's why earning more doesn't automatically make you feel wealthier. Sometimes it simply makes you more expensive to maintain. Sarah refused to fall into that trap again. She made one simple rule. Whenever her income increased, her lifestyle would increase much more slowly. Instead of spending every extra dollar, she automatically directed a portion towards savings and investments before she had a chance to spend it. She removed the decision altogether because she realized something that wealthy people understand very well. The less willpower your financial system requires, the more likely it is to succeed. She stopped relying on motivation. She started relying on systems. And systems don't care whether you're tired, busy, or having a bad day. They keep working anyway. It wasn't glamorous. There were no overnight riches, no secret investment, no magical app, just one small daily habit leading to another. Review. Pause. Choose intentionally. Repeat. It sounded almost too simple. Yet 6 months later, Sarah looked at her bank account and saw something she hadn't seen in years. Breathing room. Not because she had become rich, but because she had finally broken the cycle that had kept her broke. And that's when she was ready for the next step, turning the money she no longer wasted into something that could begin working for her instead of disappearing every month. The moment Sarah stopped living paycheck to paycheck, she expected to feel rich. She didn't. What she felt was something even more valuable: control. For years, money had controlled her decisions. Now she was finally controlling her money. That may sound like a small difference, but it changes everything. Because wealth doesn't begin when you become a millionaire. It begins the moment you stop depending on your next paycheck to survive. Sarah now had something she had never had before: a monthly surplus. It wasn't thousands of dollars. Sometimes it was just a few hundred. But instead of asking, "What can I buy with this?" she started asking, "How can this money make my future easier?" That question marked the beginning of real wealth. This is where many people make another mistake. They save money for months, see a healthy balance in their account, and then spend it on something they convince themselves they deserve. The cycle starts all over again. Sarah almost fell into that trap. She looked at her growing savings and imagined upgrading her apartment, buying a newer car, and rewarding herself for all the discipline she'd shown. But then she remembered something that changed her perspective forever. Every dollar has a job. If you don't give it one, someone else will. Advertising companies, online stores, subscription services, social media algorithms. They're all competing for your money every single day. If your dollars don't have a purpose, they'll eventually find one, and it probably won't help you build wealth. So Sarah gave every extra dollar a mission. Some went into an emergency fund. Some went toward paying off high-interest debt faster. Some went into long-term investments through low-cost index funds. She didn't chase the hottest stock. She didn't try to time the market. She chose consistency over excitement. And that's something history has rewarded again and again. The financial headlines will always try to convince you that wealth is built through dramatic moves. In reality, most financially successful people build wealth through ordinary actions repeated for extraordinary lengths of time. That's not exciting, but it works. Month after month, Sarah kept following the same routine. She reviewed her spending every day. She questioned unnecessary purchases. She automated her savings. She invested consistently. She avoided lifestyle inflation whenever her income increased. Slowly, something incredible happened. Her money started earning money. At first, the growth was almost invisible. A few dollars. Then a few more. Nothing that would impress anyone. But compound growth has a strange characteristic. It looks insignificant until it doesn't. It's like planting a tree. For a long time, it seems as though nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, the roots are spreading. Then one day, the growth becomes impossible to ignore. That's exactly how wealth works. People often overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year, but they dramatically underestimate what they can accomplish in 10. Sarah finally understood why so many people quit too early. They're waiting for dramatic progress. Wealth usually arrives quietly. One saved dollar, one wise decision, one investment, one ordinary day at a time. Then came something she never expected. Her confidence started growing faster than her bank account. Financial emergencies no longer felt like disasters. Unexpected bills became inconveniences instead of crises. She slept better. She argued less about money. She stopped comparing herself to people showing off expensive lifestyles online, because she had discovered something those pictures could never show. Looking wealthy and becoming wealthy are rarely the same thing. Many people spend years trying to look successful. A much smaller group spends years becoming financially secure. The first group buys symbols. The second group buys freedom. Freedom to leave a job they hate. Freedom to handle emergencies without panic. Freedom to make decisions based on opportunity instead of desperation. That's what money is really for. Not to impress strangers, but to give yourself options. If you remember only one lesson from Sarah's journey, let it be this. The habit that changed her life wasn't investing. It wasn't earning 6 figures. It wasn't finding the perfect side hustle. It was proving to herself every single day that she, not her emotions, not advertisements, not social pressure, was in control of her financial decisions. Everything else grew from that foundation. Because every wealthy life is built the same way. Not with one perfect decision, but with thousands of ordinary decisions that nobody applauds. That's why it's almost impossible to stay broke if you do the right things every day. Not because one day changes your life, but because every day changes who you become. And once you become the kind of person who consistently makes better financial decisions, building wealth stops feeling like luck. It becomes the natural outcome of the person you've trained yourself to be. Years from now, you probably won't remember the exact day your finances started changing, just like Sarah doesn't. Because there wasn't one dramatic moment. There was simply one ordinary day when she decided to take control of the next dollar before someone else did. Then she repeated that decision the next day, and the day after that, until the life she once thought was impossible slowly became her new normal. That's the real secret. Wealth isn't built in a single breakthrough. It's built in the quiet moments when no one is watching. One intentional decision, one disciplined habit, and one ordinary day at a time.